a lot of people today were mad at AOC again.
Yeah, there's been developments since our last episode.
Yeah,
I've heard the name.
Well, I don't know the exact context, but I think what she was doing is a town hall, and she was talking, and it was like maybe 90 seconds of a clip that I think was like about 8 minutes long, and she was talking about how Biden's like policies, immigration policies, are slightly more humane than Trump's. Like, they're both awful, but
he's doing the best he can.
Yeah, there's no more family separation. And I and some other people are like, okay, even if it is like slightly better, like, it's still disgusting.
I've seen the pictures, and you see children crammed together in cages.
Yeah,
in the middle of a pandemic. And wait, what's the part of this I'm supposed to think is good?
Well, what she was saying is that babies are not being ripped out of their mother's arms, which of course that is an absolutely horrible thing. But perhaps we could have a world where there's no kids in cages, and to me, it's been very, I don't know, it's just been really weird and disconcerting and expected, but also sad to see how fast people have given up on the idea of not having kids in cages in the Biden era.
Yeah, that's it, right? And it feels weird right after, the DSA interview where she says, it's not about being holier than thou. And there's people who are accusing, who want to play this game of who's leftier than thou. And, we want to have good faith critiques and people of privilege. It's a matter of privilege to, I want to say this right, because people have actually been mischaracterizing what AOC said to a degree, even though it's bad enough what she did say. But that, it's a matter of privilege to think that Joe Biden isn't going to accomplish anything, right? That's what AOC said. At the same time, what's so troubling about that kind of a statement is what it does is it sets up the expectation that if anything is even incrementally a teeny tiny bit better, then somehow you are out of pocket for pointing out all the ways in which it could be enormously better, and that there aren't, in fact, all of the obstacles that liberals come up with as to why they can't improve on the status quo. Those don't exist.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I feel like, I don't know, even semi-well-intentioned liberals will see things about, these detention centers that they're putting children in now under the Biden administration and say things, well, like, I don't know, it's not good, but where else are the kids supposed to go? I don't know, a freaking park, a playground. Like, I went many places as a child, and none of them were jail. So I feel like we could find somewhere.
Yeah, we're not even talking about like a safe detention. We're talking about cramming kids in cages. Literally the shit that we were all pissed about with the Trump administration.
Yep.
In the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you guys think about how much this sort of thing is going to stick. Because I felt like with the DSA article, because there was a little bit of this filtering through the WSWS article, which didn't necessarily represent the original in its best light. It obscured the criticism that I think was legitimate about the original article. And there were clear factions. Some people who were like, this is unfair, this is bad faith, I agree with AOC. And then other people who were like, either based on the SWSW article or based on the original, like, this ain't it, chief. This coming out just days after all of that brouhaha seems to have reconstituted the left around some, genuine skepticism about AOC. But I'm curious about how sticky you think that is and whether or not she can kind of claw this back and rehabilitate herself.
I don't think that it's really going to stick. I mean, I think that the people who are skeptical of AOC, I think many of those people are becoming skeptical of electoralism as a mechanism for change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely some people that are like, yeah, like, replace AOC with, like, someone more left than AOC. But I think a lot of people are starting to see, like, no, actually, the efforts to unionize Amazon are very exciting, and there's just like there's a lot of other ways that people are taking action right now, and I think that I don't know. I think that people are losing hope in like electing a ton of AOCs as a way to save us all or something.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Leslie? Because a lot of the I know pushback was from people of color on the left in particular, who bristled, I think rightly so, at this suggestion that to be skeptical of incrementalism is a privileged position that disregards the needs of our Black and brown comrades.
I mean, that's just silly shit. That was embarrassing, not just because of what she was saying, just because it was a poorly constructed argument. It made me think that, wow, like maybe she's not actually that good at this. If you have to go out there and defend the kids in cages under Biden, you should probably come up with something better than as privileged to complain too much about Biden. That just seems like a very lazy attempt to mitigate that. But generally speaking, I do like that it's nice that people have seemingly discovered a month or two later that you are allowed to lightly criticize elected officials, including AOC and other ones that you think are cool. Like if it feels like the vibes have certainly changed, and that the people who spent the past 2 months declaring blood war against anyone who criticized AOC or anyone in the squad have kind of backed off from that. A quite reasonable thing to do. There's
a difference, like, to me, there's like, I don't know, there's a little bit of a difference to me, and like people that are kind of like, oh, she's bad, she's a liar, and people who are like, no, actually, like what is it doing to defend the Biden administration in any way right now on this issue, and I think that, yes, I am glad to see people engaging with like criticisms of what she's doing and what she's saying. But I do think that some of the AOC is a CIA op, that stuff is like getting a little silly, I think.
Yeah. I mean, my feeling on these things is what's true and verifiable is worthy enough of critique that we don't have to really get into a speculative world that makes our critiques feel less credible.
Yeah.
And I think, and I said this in our last episode, I don't really, there is a tinge to some of the criticism that feels like a political investment. I'm defining myself as having being willing to be adversarial to AOC. And I don't think that that's how your politics should evolve, right? Like I don't, I am who I am regardless of what my position to AOC is. And it's not even about my position to AOC. It's about my position to what AOC has said or done, or how she's acted or not acted in any given moment. People using this kind of like totalizing approach to politicians where it's like you're good or you're bad. I mean, if anything is cancel culture, that is cancel culture. The point is we should be able to talk about something someone said or did without throwing the baby out with the bathwater or acting like people are living these absolutes. So, I think that this has been a tough week for her. We'll see what comes of it. But, it's not just her. I will say, and I will get yelled at for this will be perceived as a defense of AOC.
Who would ever yell at you?
But like, it's not just, I do think it's unfair in some ways that we don't talk about the rest of the squad and all the other progressives who allow her to take a lot of heat for a lot of stuff, including all of the stuff around force the vote and $15 minimum wage. Did either of you catch the interview that Mehdi Hassan did with Ilhan Omar about a week ago?
Didn't.
No? Oh, guys. Guys.
Just to shift to the big picture, it was reported by Politico that you were part of a Congressional Progressive Caucus delegation that recently met with White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain. What asks did you make? And what do you say to your critics on the left who say progressives in Congress like yourself, the Squad, the CPC, haven't pushed Biden hard enough on issues like the $15 minimum wage, universal health care, the filibuster?
I mean, it is because that we have been pushing really that the American Rescue Plan is deemed to be the most progressive policy in decades. We certainly understand that there was a failed strategy, not by the progressives in Congress, because we put $15 in the package, by the administration. I think their early signaling that could be negotiated out, and it might not stick as part of the final package, really, I think, endangered the ability for us to pass $15. And so when we were in that meeting, we pushed for a strategy to get $15 minimum wage. We pushed for a strategy to pass the agenda that the administration ran on, that the Democrats agree on, whether it is passing sensible gun laws, dealing with our immigration crisis, and all of the things that we all care about. What we walked away from that conversation with is an understanding that there is a limited window of opportunity for us to push these pieces of legislation. There are members in the Senate within the Democratic Party that are certainly not there yet on the priority pieces of legislation that we have. And it's going to be up to the administration to come up with a strategy to push them, because progressives in the House are constantly told to get in line and to push policies that are going to have an impact on people's lives. That's what those Democrats in the Senate need to be told, and that's what's going to take.
Progressives are constantly told to get in line, which is why, we have to find our fortitude and just ask Joe Biden politely to fight for this thing and stop selling us out. That's how I'm reading that. Am I wrong?
It definitely felt like it was like, well, we had our hands raised in the meeting and we were not called on. So
I'm calling it.
Yeah,
it was a word salad. And you see Mehdi there, like, waiting patiently for her to end this 2-minute non-answer. And look, I as a human being, which is completely irrelevant, I like Ilhan Omar. I mean, it's completely immaterial to this conversation. I think she seems dope. She raised an awesome daughter. Like, this is
one of the most courageous individuals in the House who suffered like an absurd amount of hatred for taking a principled stance on Palestinians.
So I'm not going to sit here and be like, fraud squad, or like, I don't think that she wants to do better, but like, she still, all of them deserve critique for the complete failure of strategy and or courage. Like, they all have the posture of like abuse victims. Like, I don't know what Joe Biden said to them. Like, I don't know what the tongue lashing that Nancy Pelosi gave to them backstage, but it must have really been something, because they're all coming out here like hang dog, like Stockholm syndrome, like just afraid of their own shadow types. And I don't know where all of these crusaders that we elected 2 years ago are today.
Well, it's because, honestly, the squad is a media invention, isn't it? And, Ilhan Omar is, she's a person of great integrity whom I admire, but she's not a socialist. As she was not elected with, socialists have supported her. She's not. No, she's not. There are 5 members of the House who are socialists, really just 4. And she is not one of them. So, this.
But regardless, you don't have to be a socialist to fight for a $15 minimum wage.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you have people like Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal who are, they are real deal progressives, but, not socialists. But we still look to them for fighting for exactly that. I mean, when it comes to, and this is something I've been thinking about, when it comes to the Socialist Caucus in the U.S. Congress, which, again, it is small, right? It's less than 1% of the U.S. House of Representatives. But that being said, I feel like with an organization like the DSA, I think it's kind of like the dog that caught the mail truck, right? It's like they've had relatively a lot of success in winning primaries and winning elections and electing socialists, not just in the national level, but local, state. And that's great. And over the past 4 years, I've watched this organization. They've run races, fail, learn from their failures, and then run races again, and then win. And in terms of just an organization that's going to win elections for socialists, it's been, pretty damn good. I think we can all agree on that.
Right.
Historically.
But then
right. But that's the thing. Now it's a position where, okay, what is the parliamentary strategy for elected socialists?
And there isn't.
None.
I mean,
there is none. There is none.
She says, we pushed hard for a strategy. No, you are supposed to come up with a strategy and then deploy it to get the thing that you want to do. All we heard, sorry, here's the part where 10 more people subscribe. This is what we talked about during Force the Vote. Sorry, but this was a strategy.
Goodbye to these 50 listeners.
And the whole point was, in the absence, here's what was happening in January. If people were like, no, actually, here's the plan, I'd be like, cool, whatever. I don't have any particular investment in any plan. I just want to know that somebody's doing a thing.
Yeah.
Go for it. As Virgil and Sam Cedars' favorite expression, let 1,000 flowers bloom. However,
not the same. Don't put me in the same.
There were no flowers. There were 0 flowers.
No disrespect to Sam, but I don't like it if I'm occupy the same space in your brain.
Glasses, cool glasses. Yeah.
We are very, I mean, we're both fucking cool, hot people, but we're different individuals. So I would just appreciate
voice actors,
have that distinction.
Fair enough, but the whole point was my stridency around Force the Vote happened as I talked to more people and asked them, hey, but what's the plan? Hey, but what's the plan? Hey, but what's the plan? And as they were like, I don't know, 20 years from now, maybe we'll have Medicare for all. I was like, okay, well, then I'm more and more invested in this thing, which I don't know if it's going to work out, but at least it's a tangible thing. And as we know, because of Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and the $15 minimum wage and Force the Vote and everything that these first 3 months of 2021 have taught us, is that there is an enormous amount of leverage possible to very small groups of people in Congress right now. And so to hear Ilhan Omar talking about how, we were pushing for a strategy when there are some obvious strategic moves in front of you right now, vote down the bill, say that there are things that we are willing to hold up in Congress in order for concessions. And the fact that we are enormously popular, beloved women of color is going to insulate us against a lot of the blowback that's going to come our way. And I'm willing to go up against Nancy Pelosi any day of the week in America's press.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's 5 DSA members in the U.S. Congress, U.S. House of Representatives, and they cannot lose 5 votes on any piece of party line legislation. And it's really a matter of, okay, we elected them. We just shit them on to the fucking Congress without any kind of manual or strategy for exactly how a socialist caucus should operate. And I think that's at the root of a lot of these disagreements, where some people say it's beyond the pale for socialist members of Congress to support someone like Nancy Pelosi for speaker. I consider it a tactical question, but the thing is, we're not going to answer that question unless there's an actual strategy that we're referring to. And we find ourselves in a very, a specific situation. I don't want to say a unique situation, but it's actually rather rare that the margin of power in the U.S. Congress is so narrow that this tiny little socialist caucus can actually make some big waves. And that's what I mean when I say the DSA is kind of the victim of its own success. I know people who have spent so much time knocking on doors and making calls and sending texts to get people like AOC elected, and they did a good job. They did it. We have 5 socialists in the U.S. House of Representatives, but no time has been spent thinking about, all right, well, what the hell should they do when they're there?
Yeah, there was this story today about how apparently AOC's campaign kind of auto-sent, or I don't know if auto-sent's the best word, but directed $5,000 a piece to a bunch of other campaigns, Democratic Party campaigns. And there was a big brouhaha because some folks in some districts feel like this is going to be politically disadvantageous to them if they have on their, FEC declaration or what have you, that they've taken money from AOC because she's not popular in their districts. And it's like, oh, this was an unforced error. What is the Democratic Party going to do? Oh, we've tinged ourselves by having this association with this Bronx congresswoman. And so I saw someone tweet something along the lines of, you worked really hard to elect AOC, for her to fundraise from you, disperse money to these people who hate her so much that they are unwilling to associate with her in this kind of really vague context. And it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but I think that it captures some of the spirit of how people are feeling right now, which is that we didn't elect AOC so that she could use her fame to raise a bunch of money for the Democratic Party. We elected her so that she could use that money, and we give to her so she can use the money to protect herself while she fights on our behalf.
Yes.
To put it another way, we didn't elect AOC so that she could become a political brand and a political operator. And like what you're describing is just the way politics works and how you buy support from others without the, and I hate using this term because it's such a bullshit term, but without the accountability to a democratic organization.
Accountability is not a bullshit term. If I could,
it is. I hate it. Everyone's trying to say like, Virgil, you've got to take accountability. It's like, no, I'm not. Never gonna do it. Go to hell.
Hold Virgil accountable.
Yeah, no.
They're like, Virgil, therapy session.
Yeah, because they say all kinds of nonsense. They're like, Virgil, you have to be accountable for what you said to Bree on the last episode. It's like, shut the fuck up. No, I'm never gonna be accountable. In fact, I'm doing whatever the opposite of accountability is. I'm not taking any account. I'm not even, like, my accountant is pissed off at me because I'm not even writing down my expenses right now.